So you might have heard that you can create interactive games using Canva code, but how does it work and what are the limits? I've created a range of games in Canva and I'm going to show you the exact prompts that I used, real examples, and some tips to save you time. Some games were surprisingly quick to create, while others took longer and required a lot more reprompting. Naturally, the more complex the game mechanics, then the longer it takes for Canva to code it up. So before you start, be mindful of your expectations, and a quick way to discover what is possible in Canva is just to take a look at the templates that are already available. In Canva, to find the coding templates, we just need to go to Canva AI on the left-hand side and then click on Code for Me, and you'll be able to find the Canva code templates. On the left-hand side, you can also find your previous coding projects. Now let's talk about prompting. I loosely followed this easy prompting structure. First, explain what resource you need. Is it a game? Is it a sorting activity? Next, assign the year level and the topic or subject, for example, Year 8 Science. Next, specify the content. Do you want quiz questions or drag and drop activities? And finally, you can make it your own style, so changing the appearance and formatting. All of the games that you see today took more than one prompt to create, and each version that Canva Code created got closer and closer to the game that I wanted to have. So let's dive in and take a look at the prompts and games. So the first game is a tic-tac-toe or noughts and crosses activity. The prompt that I used was create a tic-tac-toe game with 2 players, where players take turns to answer Year 7 quiz questions before they take their turn. Clearly show which player's turn it is and have a tally for the wins. So here's the first version that Canva Code came up with. So students would go ahead and answer the questions, but as you can see, there was issues with loading and I couldn't see the tic-tac-toe or noughts and crosses board. So I said, show the tic-tac-toe board side by side with the quiz questions, and here's version 2, where you can clearly see the board now. Once a student answers a question, they can put the X or O on the board. I still wanted to improve the game, so I said improve the appearance, ensure no questions are repeated, and have 3 levels of difficulties with a bank of 30 questions per level. So here's version 3. We can see there's different levels of difficulty for the questions. And a big tip is just to ensure that you do test your game out, because I did find an issue where if a player gets the question wrong, it's still their turn. So I said if the player gets the question wrong, they should lose their turn and it should move to the next player. So in my final version, the functionality should work a lot better. The next game is my favorite, and I have multiple versions of this game on Google Sheets, and it's the pixel art activity. I started with the prompt, create a pixel art activity where students answer 20 Year 7 maths questions, and if they get the correct answer, then random parts of the pixel art character appears, and it did not display correctly. So it took multiple versions of it to actually create. So in version 2, yep, the art's not really displaying. Version 3 as well. And by version 4, it kind of looked like what I wanted it to be. So let's take a look. Yep, we answer questions and then bits of the puzzle appear. This is the final pixel art image, and I did ask Canva Code to create it like Pikachu, and it doesn't really look like the image that I wanted. So I then told Canva Code to change the cartoon to something else that kids would like. I think it chose a robot or something. And also to remove any mention of what the mystery image is in the text so that students will be surprised once they get their final character. And in version 5, that's what we have. So next up we have drag and drop activities, and I actually grabbed this template from Canva and just added the different levels of difficulty to the game. But I was wondering whether or not we could have more images for students to put the image to the animals. So I created instead a food chain builder. So my prompt was create a food chain builder, drag the images of plants and animals into the correct order to complete the food chain. Create 3 levels of difficulty. Let's take a look at version 1. So you've got easy. You can see you've got grasshopper, grass, and frog. You drag and drop, and you check the chain. So in this first version, I thought that the functionality was really good, but the images just weren't that great. So let's take a look at media. Got large fish, small fish, algae, and heron. And to be honest, all the fish look the same to me. So I thought that the images just weren't cutting it. So I said use emojis as the images and improve the appearance. So for version 2, this is what we get. So this is the easy level, medium, which is looking a bit better now with the emojis. And finally, in the last version, I just said put the organisms at the top and the food chain at the bottom so that the food chain kind of goes from the left to the right. So if you want to make things a little bit more visual, you can choose to use emojis instead of the images that Canva creates. Next up is actually the first game I created in Canva. So I wanted to create a word guessing game similar to the classic Taboo game, where students would get a card and they'd have to give hints to their team members on what the word is without using any of the taboo words. So I said Taboo is a game where 2 players take turns to give clues to a word. They receive a flashcard with 5 words they're not allowed to say while giving clues. Create 30 flashcards related to a topic, volcanoes in this case, for my Year 8 science class. So this is what version 1 looked like. And yeah, we've got the timer, but you can see there's a lot of overflowing with the text. And I did play around with it and I didn't really like the functionality. So as you can see, I did get up to version 14, which is a little bit extreme, but like I said, it was my first game and I wanted it to be perfect. So this is what we have. So guess the word challenge, and you start the game and it's very functional. You've got the word that you want to give hints to and the words that you're not allowed to say, and it flips between teams really nicely as well. And finally, we're down to the big last game, and that's an escape room. So I would say only attempt this if you're up for the challenge, because it did take a long time for Canva Code to create it due to the complexity. So let's take a look. So this is my prompt: create an escape room challenge where students answer 20 Year 7 science questions, use drag and drop puzzles, hidden clues, and clickable elements, and this is what I got. So with my other games, it might have taken a few minutes for Canva to load it up, but for this escape room challenge, each version took about 10 minutes, which is quite a lot of time, and it was about 1,400 lines of code, which seems quite a lot. I think the design of it is quite basic, but I think students will still have a lot of fun with this game. As I've mentioned, make sure you test your game and make improvements every single prompt that you make. So I said, I've run out of questions to answer, ensure there's enough questions. The hints should help students find the next puzzle, and there should be a lock at the end so that students can crack it. Version 2, and Canva Code actually gives you the answer as well, which is nice. I still didn't really have a lock puzzle there, so I did ask Canva Code again, show the lock puzzle. So in version 3, students do have an exit lock at the bottom, and they can try a combination to escape the room, and they'll get hints along the way as they're answering questions. I really like the matching activities that it has, and I did give Canva Code some explicit instructions. So have instructions at the top, which is here, and highlight the selected item so it's obvious what the students had selected. So pumps blood around the body. You want to do heart at the top. Controls bodily functions, brain, breaks down food, stomach, and then lungs. Submit answer. There's an explanation and there's also a clue. So check the microscope next. It reveals tiny details. Continue. I would definitely recommend, if you wanted to do an escape room, possibly do it at the end of a topic so you've got a bank of questions that you can use and you've got a little bit of time to create the escape room as well. So here are some quick tips from the video. You can choose to use an easy prompting structure. First, you would explain the resource. Next, assign the year level as well as topic and subject. Specify the content, so quiz questions or matching activity, and just then make it your own style. Expect to create multiple versions of the game. It probably won't be perfect the first time around, and each time you prompt, it might give a different result. So make minor improvements each time. Next, consider simpler images. So for example, emojis work really well as Canva creates some more basic looking images otherwise. If you're planning to create a more complex game in Canva, like the escape room, then potentially have it towards the end of a topic so you have time to create it as well as big bank of questions to use. And if you are creating that larger, more complex game, then be aware that loading times are a little bit longer there. Let me know what your favorite game was in the comments below and what you plan on creating in Canva code. Hit the like and subscribe button if you enjoyed this video, and you can check out my original Canva code video here. Thank you so much for watching.